Welcome to the Junto Men's Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things related to men. We explore how to go from good to great, from high performers, and also aim to provide a shining light if you're experiencing darkness in your life. Grab a pen and paper and enjoy the ride.
Gosh, man, because parties already sort of know a bit of my background. I've been pretty nomadic over the last 42 years, up and down the coast, in between here and the bush and the coast, and backwards and forwards up to the Gold Coast and that type of thing. And I've had an interesting journey. So what I thought I'd do this evening is just give a bit of an overview. Like I'm not going to tell you about my childhood for a pity party or anything like that, but I just want to create a little bit of context around where I came from, what I've probably had to deal with growing up as well. If that connects with somebody, then that's awesome, and also shit at the same time. But that's really good. But then this probably helps sort of give you a bit of context around what I've embarked on in the second half of my life to be able to undo a lot of the stuff that was done from a child trauma point of view, inner child work, all of that sort of stuff. So I am, full disclosure, I won't go too deep, but I'm full hippie. Okay, I might sell real estate, and I might have been doing that for 20 years, but I'm full hippie, and at the core of me, I'm a full hippie, and I embrace that a lot every single day. So I am into the woo-woo. I do a lot of that stuff, because a lot of that stuff resonates with me, and it's sort of how I came. So in a nutshell, as a child, I think I came into this life as a seeker of knowledge, seeker of excitement, seeker of truth, all of that sort of stuff. I've always asked the question, no matter what environment I've been in, no matter how traumatic, how difficult, I've always somehow been able to ask the question of the right people, and the right people have always shown up in my life when I really needed them. And if there's something I'm extremely blessed in, and something that I believe in, is through being able to ask the questions is when you're going to be able to get the best help. And innately, I came knowing that. Fortunately, some of the things that I had to go through forced me to ask the questions to be able to get out of certain situations and move on with life. But there's always been, call it intuition, call it the higher power, call it higher self, whatever you want to call it. There's always been something that has guided me from being a little boy, the type of boy that used to go to sleep and hear voices, see shadows, people come visit me. Never know who that is, where they are. Could never understand that, but I did put a lot of work in trying to push that down, because it was very scary. So I was actually very alone as a child. So reversing back, mum and dad, they were young parents, 17, 18. They had me out in rural New South Wales, little place called, they were living in a little place called Cumbie Chance. I was born in Canamble. Didn't grow up in Canamble, but I was there at the hospital. That's where I was born, apparently. I don't remember that part. But soon after that, mum and dad split. They both have interesting backgrounds, both from broken families, hardworking families, just getting by in the bush. It's just the culture of what it was back then. It's probably a lot different to that type of culture that we're breaking now. Dad had anger issues. His entire family, and what I was brought up with, is the way that you deal with problems is either through your fist or with your head. We're all a footy family, or rugby league. The weekends were spent after footy. You'd go back to the pub as a kid. You'd be given your red drink and the chips, and everybody would drink until somebody was out the front having the fight with whoever it is, and then we'd go home. That was sort of the culture that I grew up with. So mum and dad separated. Probably around about the time that I was maybe, I think, 3-4, it's all hazy to me. But mum's new boyfriend came onto the scene, which is my younger brother and sister's father. He came onto the scene, and that's probably where things got super interesting as well. Interesting in not a good way. So because of the stuff that I touched on before, because I was a pretty connected kid. Why, I don't know. But he because he was there to look after me, because mum worked long hours, because being so young, she was only 19, 20, 21. She had to work at the cafes, had to work at the video store. It was a small town in Manila that we lived at that stage. And we lived out in a rural property. So it was pretty bloody frightening, right? The outhouse was about 150 metres from the back door. It's pitch black for a kid that's only 4 or 5. It was pretty scary, and add into the fact that the stuff that I'd go through each night to try and get to sleep, it was pretty frightening. But he took humour with things like locking the back door, turning the light off, and howling like a wolf and stuff like that, just to get me absolutely, completely and utterly frozen with fear. And hence the reason why I ended up having a bedwetting issue until I was 12, all of that sort of stuff. He was a bit of an interesting cat, probably not the best one for somebody to sort of grow up with. He openly told my mother that he could never love another man's child. So that's sort of the relationship that we had. And from that time that he sort of came in, from that time on, I was pretty much on my own. Mum did her best. She was never around. And whenever he was looking after me, he was a bit of a grotesque sort of a guy, and he's still around. I mean, like I've gone through a lot of healing to be able to have a conversation with Robbie and that type of thing, because he's my kid brother and sister's father, and we've got a lot of connection. He was in my life for 10 years or whatever. But he came from a really interesting background as well. So very, very sus sexual background that he did, and things like porn and all that sort of stuff from a young age was thrust upon me when mum wasn't there. And I never talked about any of this stuff. I just was a very open child. I was very susceptible. Like I said, I was very connected. So this stuff was just like sponging into me at a young age. There was various things that happened with that guy. I won't go into it too much. Nothing sexual from that guy, but all of the mental and emotional stuff that really stuck with me. And that's some of the stuff that I've had to work through later in life as well. What happened, if we sort of fast forward probably about 12 months, is my father came along, and we were out there, and he actually broke into the house with his mate, threatened them that they had a gun in the car, took me out of my bed, me in the car, and took me. So I have this vague recollection of waking up in the back of the car with my father, who I didn't really know that well. I only saw him, every few months, whatever, 4 or 5, or whatever. I don't even think I was at school at that stage. Just sort of going, where's mum? And needless to say, he dropped me back in a week or two when he realised that having a little boy probably isn't that great when you're in your early 20s and you're trying to get shit done. So somehow I ended up back at mum's with Robbie and that type of thing as well. So it was just a really weird first few years of my life from that point of view. Then the whole Robbie thing just happened, and there was lots of that just over the years. I spent around about 10 years with this guy. I think it was. Might have been 8. Mum used to get sort of a 7-year itch. So I think he might have lasted 7 or 8 years, and then she did divorce him. There was quite a few things that happened, but I won't go into that. Just like I say, I'm just trying to create a context without sort of going into it too deep. The next sort of part of the timeline that I remember, and I remember it really vividly, is I used to go to my dad's place over at Kendall, which is near Lauren. I'd go there every Christmas, and it was between primary and high school that this happened, and mum had divorced Robbie, and I went through, because I've got a big heart, so seeing a grown man crying on the bed saying that your mother won't talk to me, and me trying to be the mediator of that at 12 years old, that really tore me apart. And it was like, so that was the first time I didn't see mum and dad break up, but I did see this divorce, and I saw how much it literally shattered this guy's life, and mum had made the decision, the way she dealt with things, just get out and start. And so that was super, super interesting for me. It was even more interesting that only a few months later, when I came back from dad's, and I walked through the door, g'day mum, how you going? I look in the lounge room, and Robbie's best friend sitting there in his robe, sitting next to mum, John. And as you can well believe, me being a 12-year-old, I was like, something not right about this. And the conversation from mum was, we need to have a talk. And I'm like, yeah, no, we don't. Dad, mate, I'm out. I've got to get out of here. So within the space of 4 weeks, I'd gone from having my whole infants and primary school with my, uncle, which is around the corner. My uncle's the same age as me, Clinton. So we were really tight. He was like my brother that I never had. To literally just uprooting as a 12-year-old and going, fuck this, I'm out of here. So I went to dad's place. And that started off all right. Started off probably for around about 4 weeks until I realised that my stepmother had the same sort of feelings about me as what Robbie did. And there wasn't a lot of love there. So once the tension started there, that was when everything started to fall apart. And see, held my father up on a pedestal as you do as a young boy, right? You know, I had to get senior boy champion, had to be the best footballer, I had to be all that sort of stuff to try and make that proud. Unfortunately, you could never make him proud because of what he'd come from. He could never make his parents proud, all of that sort of stuff, right? That's just the generational trauma that came from that. So yeah, what happened is I got suspended about 8 times in year 7. So there was a few, might have been 6, maybe I'm over exaggerating, but it was at least 2 to 3 times per term that I'd have a week off because of something, and all that was a cry of help. Really, I was trying to navigate the world. Went into a brand new high school, didn't know anybody. Walked in, coming from a small country town like I did, where the only way that you made sure that you stayed safe was to make sure that you beat the shit out of somebody so nobody else would beat the shit out of you. So the first thing I did when I turned up there that day is somebody was picking on the only guy that I knew in Kendall, and he was twice the size, and I beat the shit out of him. So then I was safe. So then I played that whole persona right up into my 20s to keep myself safe. And that's literally, I didn't like doing it because there was real dark side to me back then because of the anger, because of all of that sort of stuff. And I actually hurt a few people really bad growing up. I'm lucky enough that, hospital was the only place that they ended up, not dead, that type of thing. But yeah, there was a few touch and go moments that really stick to my mind just in my teenage years from that point of view. The next part of the timeline that was really, it's imprinted in me is when I did get suspended for the first time, and I thought from all the stories that Dad told me about how much of a shit of a kid he was at school, surely he'd probably be surprised and proud of this, but no, I received a headbutt for that one. So that was sort of the first time that I was like, wow, the guy that I absolutely love and adore can physically hurt me that much. And it's not that it hurt me. I dropped to the ground. I still remember it. Not a lot did hurt me. I was a pretty tough kid, even though I was really emotional. So out of the whole family, I was the most connected, really emotional sort of kid. But I was tougher than most of them. But it was the emotional stuff that hurt me the most. And I remember dropping to the ground and just wanting that to be finished. I learned that earlier on in my life, that the quicker that you drop to the ground, the quicker it stops. So however I was physically abused, I learned really, really quickly through my previous stuff that the quicker you drop to the ground, the quicker you submit to somebody that's bigger than you, the quicker it'll be all over and done with. So that was the first time of quite a few times that happened. The straw that broke the camel's back was when he did it in front of my best mate when it was year 8, and that's actually when I ended up asking for help. And luckily, people that did love me, that weren't a part of my family, that grew up with my family, that were over there, they made it happen, and I ended up back at Mum's at Tamworth. But in that period of time, the way that I dealt with things, I'll just have some water. In that period of time, the way that I dealt with things was either escaping from binge drinking, because I hung out with all the older kids. I was 13, 14. I was hanging out with the 18, 19, 20-year-old kids around there. So I'd sneak out every weekend. I was in a caravan out the back. So it was quite easy for me to sneak out each weekend without knowing once they all went to bed, go and party with these guys, absolutely smash myself. And then somehow, I still remember sweeping out a or shoveling out a pig shed one morning, absolutely green at about 14, trying not to spew, and my father pretty much laughing at me, going, I know that you snuck out, I know that you're hungover, but you still got to work. And I'm like, I look back on that and go, it's probably not the pep talk that you should have at 13. Maybe the conversation should be a little bit like, why are you doing this? But that's just the league that he was from. So binge drinking, heaps of pot. I was really intelligent, so I was the dealer, so I just taxed all of it. So I had it on tap the whole time as a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old. That's what I did. And heaps of aerosol cans. So that was sort of my go-to, was aerosol cans. Luckily for me, I didn't have enough money, nor did I have the access to hard drugs that I could have been hooked on. And once again, like I say, that guiding light, that intuition, whatever it might be, something that was protecting me, always seemed to make that not available at the times that I really wanted to do it, because I was always trying to, what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing? How can I escape? I just wanted to escape this whole reality that I was in, because I just wanted to either survive it or get the fuck out of there. So either way didn't really bother me, because it didn't really seem like there was any real meaning to the childhood the way that I was going through it. So yeah, so I ended up going back to mum's. At that stage, she'd married John. When I'd gone over to Dad's place, they were in Tamworth. They moved from Manila to Tamworth. My youngest brother turned up that I wanted nothing to do with because he just reminded me of John. So I love Joey to bits now. He's my youngest brother. He's early 20s. He's just having his first child. But I still just remember how much hatred I had for that kid for no reason at all. And it was only because of the situation that I had that. I remember John had a dog. Like, I love animals. I'm a vegan now, right? But I used to kick the shit out of this dog because it was John's. Like I would take delight in hurting things just because it made me feel better. So there's a lot of that was baggage that I hung on to because it was just pain. I was just trying to get my pain, and I thought there was sort of something wrong with me. And I'll go back before I went to mum's actually, and what happened is I was taken advantage of. So I was a young guy, nobody sort of looking after me, and there's. Unfortunately, in Kendall, apparently I found out there's actually quite a few child predators around that. And this guy, who I still remember meeting him, lured me in through driving cars, giving me drugs, giving me alcohol, porn, all of that sort of stuff. And he ended up taking advantage of me. And so I was sexually assaulted for nearly 2 years. And that really messed with me because that was something that I had to push down because I knew that I wasn't gay. But I couldn't understand how that could happen to me. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it because nobody would understand it. Nobody knew how to deal with that. There's no way I couldn't broach anything like that. So I sort of dealt with that my entire life until 3 years ago that I finally felt that I was ready to talk to somebody, which is my psych. And that's where I'll come back to that. So that's something that I carried. It was like the last piece of the puzzle for me that I had to work through. So yeah, so I went back to mum's place. There, I was just a rat bag of a kid, but I sort of pulled it together a little bit just to get through. I just went to school, not because I liked it, just because if I wasn't doing that, I'd have to go and get a trade or something like that. And I knew I wasn't staying in Tamworth. So I just went to school. I met Carrie, my now wife, when I was late 15. So we've been together, I'm 42 now. We've been together since school. So you can imagine what I've pulled her through over the last 20 odd years. And she stuck by me the whole time. So once again, that serendipitous energy that I'm talking about, she was one of them. She took me from having to focus on things like, hard drugs and those things that were starting to become available to me to refocus me to sex. As a teenager, that's literally what it was. It was sex on tap every day. Literally, that's what it was. But if it wasn't that, then I would have been filling it with something else. So as crazy as it might seem, to have a kid, I mean, outside of being abused, my first sexual experience was like 13 anyway. So that all culminated because of what I was subject to at an early age with Robbie as well. It was just something that I had to get a part of it. So it was, and it's something that I've had to deal with over the years as well. It's just how deeply rooted that perverse side of things can actually become if you're subject to that at an early age. So yeah, I met Carrie when I was 15, and that actually helped me really clean my act up as far as being a young guy. I even paid for my school tuition, which just kept me to year 12. I was a shit of a kid. I was a negotiator the whole time, which is probably why I'm really good at what I do now and have been over the last 20 years. But I spent my whole school, let's call it career, learning how to deal with people and learning how to be able to manipulate situations and coerce and influence and that type of thing. And somehow I got through year 12. I passed whatever it was, HSC. I only ever did just enough work to get through it. But that was it. I came down here after that to Newcastle. So we moved from Tamworth to Newcastle. Carrie and I were together. Carrie's a single child. So for the first 6 months, I nursed a crying single child driving to Newcastle because she left a bloody family in Tamworth. And I could never understand that as well. But I've learned a lot about that since. She's got her whole story as well. Because, hurt people attract hurt people. But hers is a lot cleaner than mine, luckily. But anyway, so we came down here. I just knocked on doors down here because I knew that I needed to get a job. I worked like 3 or 4 jobs during school anyway. I actually worked more than I I paid attention at school. And once again, it's just because I had to pay for school and I had to pay my own way, all of that sort of stuff. Got a job out in a warehouse at Sandgate just through door knocking at 18. I was at that stage, did that for around about 12 months, and then knew that I couldn't be a bloody warehouse stocker or whatever it is. I forget what they call the guys that are in the warehouse, but I was one of them as a young guy. Storeman, that's it, storeman. So I was a storeman back then. But I realised that, I probably needed to get something behind me. And then I literally just went through the newspaper, every single trade that I could really think of, just to see if I could get a go anywhere. And, what happened is I ended up working for Like New, which is the white goods appliance joint in Broadmeadow there, Raj. That was an interesting time, but I won't even worry about that. Funny times. Doors flying off cars, fridges and stuff like that. It was funny times. I probably wasn't the best first year apprentice, but look, I did that for about 3 months and realised I wasn't going to be fixing washing machines and fridges for the rest of my life. And I was lucky enough through asking questions. One of the teachers put me on to another local air conditioning company that was a residential air conditioning company out of Toronto. And I got into residential air conditioning. So I sort of did domestic and then I did residential. And in the 4 years that I did my trade, I'd actually gone through 4 different places to make sure that I had a vast knowledge of different refrigeration. I finished up at the Gold Coast doing all the polar bear exhibitions and all that sort of stuff and the big high-rise refrigeration air conditioning stuff that you can do up there. So really quickly within 4 years, I got a vast knowledge of what you can do as a Friggy and learned really, really quickly as well that I didn't want to be a Friggy. But I had that trade and that actually helped me, in between the GFC when I came back down here. So Carrie, she went to university and that's why we came down here. She did 3 years of a teaching degree and decided she didn't want to be a teacher either once she started doing prac, which was great. So she got into real estate. She started with property management and then so she's actually been in real estate longer than what I have, selling property and that type of thing. So professionally, it's nearly 20 years now. I think it is when I first got into real estate in the prestige market up at the Gold Coast. I did that. It's commission only. I sold all my tools and I made $1,300 in the first 3 months. That's what we had to survive on. Because it took me 3 months to actually get a listing and get it sold and actually be paid. So we only just made it. But from that time on, we did carve out a really fucking awesome real estate business. I was working under the Ray White banner up there, but we were killing it. We were early mid-20s, making a lot of money, didn't save any of it, spent a whole lot of it, enjoyed the Gold Coast, did all of the stuff that you would expect to do as a pre-GFC, early 2000s real estate agent. I was a fucking idiot. I was a real idiot. I had an ego that was bigger than you could ever like. Everything that I don't like about real estate agents now is because I was one of them when I was a kid. And it's what I was taught to do. It was how I was taught to sell real estate. So I thought that was what you needed to do to be successful. And funnily enough, I was really, really successful doing it. Then the GFC came through. The GFC on the Gold Coast absolutely shattered the Gold Coast. So other areas went through the GFC, but you went from an area that went over 35 to 40% growth to actually decreasing within 6 months, more than that. And people couldn't sell places and people were forfeiting on their loans, all of that sort of stuff. So that was a super great lesson for me. But after working 7 days a week for 5 or 6 years and then having to deal with that, I burnt out. I suffered my first ever, I didn't know what it was. I only knew after, later on down the track what it was, but I dropped into a really heavy depression. Really, really heavy depression after that. And I put it down to that it must have been real estate, it must have been because of GFC. And I got out of real estate. I got out of real estate for a little over a year. I did air conditioning again, jumped back into trade, and I did pretty well, but I just couldn't do it for too long. So I did air conditioning up there, ran my own business for under 12 months. I think it was 6 to 10 months or something. Came back down here because, like I say, we spent all our money. And I just wasn't earning enough money doing the refrigeration air conditioning stuff to be able to keep up with all the bills that we'd accrued up on the Gold Coast. So we came back down to Newcastle at that stage. I stayed on the tools. I just needed a break, and it was the best 12 months that I've had in the last 20 years because all I did is just fix shit out of the Hunter Valley. and I got to wine and dine, and I got to do all of that stuff as well. It was pretty cool 12 months out there, but I knew really quickly that I didn't want to run a business in refrigeration air conditioning. And because I am really good at what I do, it's a lot easier for me to make money out of real estate. So I ended up getting back into real estate down here, and I sold real estate in Newcastle for around about 6 years. And once again, built up a really, really good reputation, a great reputation, the type of reputation that I wish I had in my 20s, but the reputation that I do have now. And that's, I still had a lot of ego because I hadn't dealt with it. I was in my 20s. I'd done a little bit of work. I'd sort of, dabbled in this and dabbled in that, and started sort of opening up those wounds. But it was really scary to do so because I was worried about what might come out, what deep, dark things might actually come out. Because I had a lot of it. I pushed it all down there, and the ego was doing well. It was keeping me safe. And but yeah, I went through around about 6 years of that, and that was really fruitful, extremely good. But I got to a stage where the company that I was working with at that stage wanted me to come in as a small share partner, and I just didn't feel comfortable about it. And I felt that the reason that they were doing that is because they wanted to lock me in. They wanted to lock me in because I was their main residential sales agent. I was actually the only one at that stage because the other ones had left. And I was doing, really good deals. I was doing over 75 a year, which is in real estate terms is, a lot of deals. I had a great team. And at the same sort of time is when Paige came along, my daughter. And what happened is, so this is 8 years ago. She just turned 8 the other day. What happened is when Paige turned up, she turned my world on top of its head. I know a lot of fathers say this, but it really fucked me up. It really did, because what I realised is that I'd been kidding myself up until then. I'd been pretending that I was doing the work. I'd been pretending that I was okay, but I wasn't. I was not okay. I hadn't dealt with the stuff the way that I needed to deal with it, and I wasn't sure which direction I needed to take to be able to do so. So there was a lot of soul searching that happened, and in the same period of time when Carrie actually fell pregnant with Hayden, was when this whole partnership thing was going. Real estate was awesome. I just finished a couple of little developments as well. So, we were killing it. We were really killing it. Life was great. But then really quickly it unraveled because I said no to the partnership. They didn't agree to the adjustment on splits and those type of things that I felt was fair. And I decided that it was time to part ways with these guys, but they pulled a non-compete for me. So non-compete, for those who don't know, is there's a certain amount of area that you can't sell property or you can't deal in, and it was for over 12 months. And it was between here and Models Bay. It was the biggest non-compete yet. So obviously I had friends that were solicitors, went and sat with them. They said, look, you can fight this, and that's great, but it could take 6 to 12 months for you to be able to do it anyway. And in that meantime, you're going to have this hanging over your head. And me being me, I don't sit around and wait for things. So I said, well, fuck it. I've moved before. Carrie, where are we going? And Carrie said, well, Matt Steinway and the McGrath team are probably the best that there is in the business. We don't want to go to Sydney. We don't want to live in Sydney, but that's close enough for us. So went down and joined the McGrath network down at the Central Coast. And that was really good for me because up until then, from a business point of view, I'd learned everything that I could. I'd gone to every training thing that you could go to. I'd dealt with the best. I travelled to Sydney and Melbourne and places and sat and had coffee with number one agents in Australia, really dissected how they did business. And I was just feeling held back here in Newcastle with the people that I was surrounded with because there was nobody doing this around Newcastle. And I got that opportunity to be able to go down and work alongside Matt Steinway and his team that do, between $5 and $10 million worth of GCI per year, which is, huge because that's hundreds and hundreds of properties a year that they're doing, and see how well they were running their business, and also learn what that can do to your lifestyle. So he's gone through around about 4 different divorces. He's had multiple wives, he's got kids to heaps of, and he's like his personal life, this guy. He probably thinks it's amazing, but for me, I was like, fuck no. Like I want to be a really good father. That's what I'm here for. So I had this real tear that if I was going to go to the next level in real estate, what that actually meant to sacrifice and where that juggle was going to be. So we were in Terrigal for about 2 years, and we couldn't do any more than 2 years in Terrigal. It's just too small. Although it's beautiful to live there, it's just too small. So weirdly enough, how life does, it brought us back through Newcastle
for a brief period of time. And there was this period of time, and all of this had sort of culminated. It was very, I was trying to do my work, which I was doing, and I'll come back to some of the work that I did, but I was doing my work. I had 2 children. I was starting a business. We were trying to make sure we had enough cash to survive, that type of thing. We were building a business there as well. And then my closest uncle, which, was probably the only uncle in my family that I had deep respect for. He was only around 6 to 8 years older than me. I don't know the exact time. So I was in my 30s. He was in his early 40s. He got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and died within 6 months. So for me, that was the first man in my life that I actually held regard for in my life, that I'd seen what he did. I'd seen what he'd done with his family, that type of thing. And I really respected him. He always had time for me as well. And he was taken out of my life really quickly. Even though he was far north Queensland, we could always talk. We'd only talk every couple of years, but we could always talk. And that really affected me. And then what happened not long after that is we decided to go from Terrywood back here. And I'm always put in a weird spot where I need to be at any particular time. So I didn't know why we were coming through Newcastle. I didn't particularly want to be back here. Anyway, so we got to work, and within 4 weeks of moving into Carrie's mother and father's place, because we were like, okay, we're moving here, then we'll get a place if we're going to stay here, but we're not quite sure what we're doing. We're just finding our feet. Carrie's father got diagnosed with lung cancer. And so for the next 12 months, we were here in Newcastle, having to run business, trying to do that and dealing with that. And in the interim, my grandfather, the only other man that I held high respect for, took his life. So within 3 years, the men that were the most stable in my life were taken within 12 months. And I had a lot of shit going on. I was trying to deal with my own stuff, and I had a lot of traumas that I was working through and that type of thing. And then this came up. And that was probably, I would have to put that down to the hardest period of my life, which was only, maybe 5 years, 5 years ago maximum. 5 years ago maximum. It was the most difficult, the most confusing and most emotional time of my life, because I didn't know why I felt the way I did. It wasn't that these were the guys that, brought me up or anything like that, but I just couldn't pinpoint why it was that I was so affected. I had many people in my family, many men that had passed away over the years, but these 3 particular people that were removed from my life really quickly, it took me probably 12 months and a lot of healing to understand the fact that the reason why I was affected so much is because they were the only stable men in my life. They were the only stable men in my life that I could sort of look to as a beacon of going, okay, well, I know you. I know that you're a safe option in my life. And for the 3 of them to be taken away was sort of like where I was when I was a child again. Like, I'm alone. I'm alone and I don't have anybody that I can look to. So that really created a catalyst for me to go next level again. And that's when the real healing started kicking in a little over 5 years ago. So like I say, I've been doing healing for 20 years, but it really ramped up over the last decade. And that healing came back to finding the things that worked for me as well. So once again, like I say, I'm a seeker at heart, and I'm not afraid to ask the questions to be able to find out what I need to be able to do to take me to the next level, to unravel it, because I knew that if I didn't, I'd end up with cancer. I'd end up with an issue. I'd end up with depression. I'd probably end up taking my life down the track, because that was how I felt at that stage. And that's not what I wanted to be for my kids. I made a commitment to my children before I even had them that I was going to be the best father in the world that I could possibly be. But I wasn't able to be that father without doing the work, without going and doing the work. So I've done all sorts of stuff, and each thing has been brought to me at a particular time. So I have done psychedelics for treatments, from a depression point of view, from a healing trauma point of view, that sort of stuff. There's certain psychedelics that I've done that have actually been really good for me. Not an advocate that everybody goes out and does crazy shit like ayahuasca and DMT and mushrooms and all of that, LSD, whatever it is that you want. But for me, for particular moments in my life, it came to me and it was available for me, and through the right people and the right set and setting, it really contributed to my healing. I've done other things like sweat lodges, which was a really big breakthrough for me as well, and that was more a grounding and mental and physical release. And then breath work, which I am a real advocate of, and I am a student of, and I'm a facilitator of as well, was another way that without psychedelics and those type of things that I could get into all states of consciousness and regulate my nervous system and start healing trauma. That was quite a profound way for me to do it. And I'd been doing it through Kundalini yoga and stuff like that for quite a few years. But the breakthrough stuff, the holotropic stuff, the shamanic breathwork stuff is where I really got a lot of healing from outside of these other modalities that I've done. So there's a whole gamut of different things that I've done. But the most hard for me, so it was all good being able to do that stuff. I sold a property for a lady and her husband down in Terrigal. This is the energetic stuff, okay, the people putting you in the right place. And she was a psychologist. And I remember thinking to myself over 5 years ago, when I was down in Terrigal, I remember thinking to myself, when I'm ready to talk, she would be the person that I'd want to talk to. And sold her out of Terrigal, and she went to Mullumbimby. Weird story about Mullumbimby as well, how that all went around. It's all connected to my grandmother and that type of thing. She was up there at some stage, and I spent a lot of time in Mullumbimby. Anyway, so crazy enough, me selling her up to Mullumbimby, me moving to the Gold Coast, and me going, I'm ready to talk. She was only 45 minutes down the road. And I've only had 4 conversations with her. With the 4 conversations, solidified the stuff that I was unsure about, like, yes, you were sexually abused. No, it's not your fault. No, you did have a shit childhood. That stuff shouldn't have happened to you. And stop making excuses for the people that did it to you. Because that's what I was doing. Yeah, but I understand because, they had this, or they had this, and I know where they've come from, because I was highly intelligent, because I'd read all the psychology books and all of that sort of stuff. But actually accepting the fact and acknowledging the fact that stuff had happened to me and it was okay for me to acknowledge that through speak therapy, spoken word therapy was the best and most amazing part of the therapy that I could have had. And I think it is very important to be able to resonate with the people that you're ready to talk to. And that's how I felt in that situation. So for the first time, so I do breath work and all of that sort of stuff. Obviously, because it worked for me, I've gone headfirst into that and gone, I need to share this. I need to share this with as many people as possible. I've done functional breath work qualifications and obviously the holotropic stuff, and that I'm doing one this weekend here. I've only got a few that are coming at the moment, but we're doing one here. But the things that I really love as well is, I'm looking to roll out rites of passage frameworks, which I did that last year. And the reason I talk about that is I was sitting in the retreat where I was doing the rites of passage framework learnings, I guess you could do for the 3 days. And they went around and, it's like, it's interesting when you get a crew of people together like this and it all comes up and it sort of sometimes feels like it's about whose trauma is biggest or whatever it is. And I remember listening to these people and resonating and feeling it and understanding, and unfortunately being able to go nearly with all of them, go, yeah, done that, been there, yeah, got that. And it came round to myself and they sort of, and they weren't asking, well, what's your biggest trauma? They just wanted people to share stuff. And I remember sitting there for the first time ever, I said, I'm okay. I'm actually okay. The work that I've done has put me in a position for the first time in my life at 41 years old, and I'm okay. And it's a really weird feeling. A really weird feeling to be okay. But to know that you can come from the trauma that I did, which is real trauma, and the childhood and the teenage years and the things that I've experienced, and arrive in your 40s knowing that, yes, I am being the absolute best father that I can be. Yes, I am showing up as a husband. Yes, I am going out there and providing for my family like I've always wanted to be. And yes, I've fucking done the work to be able to get there. And yes, I actually feel okay. Like that was a position that I wasn't sure that I'd ever get to. But it was the first time that I'd acknowledged it, because I was like, I'm in a really weird space right now. Because I don't actually have things that I seriously need to work on anymore, because I've accepted them.
I'm at a space where I've accepted. The big acceptance part for me was the hardest part, to accept that yes, it did happen to me. No, it wasn't okay. Yes, you can heal from that, and yes, you can still have a conversation with the guy that might have been the reason that you were subject to it. Yes, you can. I mean, I don't have a great relationship with my father because of that, but I can pick him up at the pub when he's here, because that's where he stays, because that's what he wants to do, and take him to the park and have a conversation with him, which is a general conversation, because he wants to spend time with my kids, and be okay with it, and understand that connection has nothing to do with me. Know that we're never going to have anything in common, and know that we're never going to be where we were when we once were, but accept that and be okay with it. So outside of that, the good news is no matter where you are, I believe, depending on what you call success. So success for me is being in a position where you're okay. Whatever it is that you're working towards, if you're okay, you're being successful. I mean, they always, I forget who it is, but one of my favourite sayings is, all you really need is food, shelter, and companionship. And I've got that, and so much more. So I'm happy to be able to say, and hopefully by sharing this bit of a story, as long-winded as it might have been, is that no matter where you are on your journey, if you're not okay, you can be. You can be. You've just got to keep the hope there and keep doing the work. That's about it for me.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm done. Well, I'm not done on this journey.
That last bit is gold, man.
I think
Like that?
I've got two questions.
Yeah, go.
I'll say both questions at the same time, and just whatever you feel comfortable in the order that you want to answer. How do you be a good father when you haven't grown up with a good father? Do you know what I mean? Like we're taught how to be a good father, I think, maybe. I'm just wondering how what you model or look to be a good father because you didn't have that in your life.
Yeah, so one of the biggest blessings that I had is I didn't have a good father.
Yeah.
So understanding what you don't do.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, is being able to seek out what should I do? What actually feels right?
Yeah.
Because your internal compass is always right. You know, if you really sit with yourself and you sit with yourself, you learn to be able to sit with yourself, you'll always have the answers of what a good father really is to you. So, you know, aside from what, you know, society might have you led to believe, it's what is at core for you. What does a good father really mean? And see, the big struggle for me is when I thought success was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day and earning heaps of money. Being able to somehow, and this has been the most difficult part from a financial point of view and from a business point of view, is being able to have so much flexibility that I am there for the kids whenever they need me. So, you know, like, and Carrie and I, luckily we've worked together for over 20 years. I feel really blessed with that. I mean, I don't understand people that say I could never work with my wife. I'm like, fuck, I love this woman. I want to spend every minute I can with her. Like, I really do love her. And the same with the kids outside of school. Whatever time I can spend with these kids when they want me and need me, I want to be able to show up for them. So I'm really blessed to have put myself in a position where I can potentially earn really great income, which is good. Put myself into a position where I don't have a lot of debt. You know, because I've moved my mother-in-law in with us as well, it's afforded us no financial issues from a property point of view either, and allows me to do developments and those type of things outside of that. It's those harder choices to make. Like most people go, I couldn't fucking live with my mother-in-law. I'm like, yeah, but for me, I'm not only helping her and creating a life that's beautiful for her that she can share with my children, I watch it. Like there's a lot of weirdness between like how she lives her life and how I live my life and stuff that I've really had to work on. But seeing the connection between the kids and her, for when I just don't have the energy to be able to go and do drawing and artwork, but that's her passion, and seeing them be able to share that. So being able to step away and do that for me is like, well, that's being a great father. That's not getting in the way of that. That's not having ego around that. You know, being able to, in the morning, if my boy wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go, mate, come to the beach with me. And he's like, yeah, let's go, Dad. And then having him sit there and go, Dad's just going to do breath of fire first, and then we'll go for a swim. And I posted it the other day and seeing that, like, that's awesome. That's, to me, that means more than anything. Getting into Glenrock, going to the beach, doing whatever it is with those kids, true connection for me. That's being the best father that I could be, because that's completely the opposite to what I had.
Yeah. That's what
I had somebody that was completely vacant that I could never do good enough for.
whatever he did, don't do.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
And then sort of try and, I guess, for me, what came to me through that was like less of what you think a good dad should be and more of what you feel you should be.
I'm all about feeling.
Yeah.
That's like my entire life has been led by feeling.
In your
It's
gut.
it's your intuition. It's what I would call your intuition. People call it your gut. Others call it your higher self. Whatever it is, whatever that is your guiding light. The real feel is, for me, what I've always connected into, always, and it's led me to here. I'm alive. I'm okay. So for me, I can only speak from my own experience. For me, it's what's worked for me. Yeah, but I feel really blessed because I did come as a seeker. So what I did is I sort of attached myself to my best mate's family. So like whoever seemed like they had it together. And that was another thing for me. My best mate doesn't even talk to his father. And his father for me was up here. I was like, this is the best father in the world. He's got the best family. He's got the greatest connections, builder, all of that. But then like later in their life, because of ego, both of them, because of ego, they're not talking to each other. And that kills me. But I was lucky enough to have people around me that I could go, well, I can't get it from you, but I'm gonna attach myself to your family if that's okay. And I did. It was how I saved myself. I mean, I turn up at their place at 1 o'clock in the morning because Mum and John are having a Barney and whatever, and it's the second one or third one for the week. And I'm just like, oh, I don't need this. And I just go. I'm like, I've had enough. 16-year-old kid, I don't need to listen to you bloody petty stuff. I've had enough of it. Sort it out. And he just opened the door and I'd go in and sleep with his son in the bedroom. Then I'd get up early in the morning, go home, and go to school. But there was always people there because I wasn't afraid to ask. And that's the biggest thing that I'm really, because I was a seeker and I've never been afraid to ask. I've been able to get myself out of some super tricky situations. And I just knew that I had to. Yeah. But it's fucking difficult to ask.
It's hard for humans, but it's 10 times harder for men, I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with it. I'm happy to ask too, probably not as good as you, but yeah, definitely. I just see it, especially in the trades. It's just so.
You know what? It's what broke me apart in the trade.
Yeah.
Is that mentality.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the proud mentality, and it's a cultural thing. It's a real cultural thing. Is that I'm too proud to ask. I'd rather go and fuck this up royally, whatever it is, whether it's a job, whether it's your family, whether it's life, whether it's business. I'd rather go and fuck this up than actually ask for the help because I don't want to be vulnerable because it's really scary. I don't want to show that I'm not good enough. And that's the sort of stuff that I call out now.
Yeah.
I really do. Not in a crass way.
You call out to other people, you mean?
Yeah, I'll say it's okay to ask. It's all right. And the way I call it out is I go and I be super vulnerable myself. Always. Just I just go, I'm going first. Here it is. I'm out on the table. They say you should keep your stuff to yourself. I'm like, no, fuck that. I went through this stuff to be able to help other people to just get it out because we don't need to have all this baggage. And I'm not saying that I've got all the answers ever, but I do know that I've got the tools now that whatever comes up in my life, I've got the go-tos and the ability to be able to do that.
And you can use that experience, that bad experience, to help other people.
Yeah.
Like you.
See, I don't even call it a bad experience anymore.
Your experience.
I just call it an experience.
Yeah, and
it doesn't affect me now because it happened.
Yeah.
It affects the inner child.
yeah,
And every single morning, as you know, I tell my inner child that I see you, I thank you for your courage, I feel you, I love you.
yeah.
That for me works. It really works. But yeah, it's just for that to be the father that I want to be. It's literally just following your internal compass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the other question was, have you ever saw an apology from your parents? Have you ever?
So it's interesting because one of the people I used to follow, and before he passed away, was Dr. Wayne Dyer. I don't know whether you've ever heard of this guy, but if you get the chance to listen to some of his questions and answers on an old Wayne Dyer, yeah, and he talks about a catalyst in his life where he didn't get the opportunity to be able to say to his father, you know, what was all this about, because he died, and he said, but forgiveness is the best way to do it. And if you look at a lot of the psychology stuff, and especially the self-help and the people that are out there in coaching world, they're like, you know, seek an apology, and then you'll be able to heal that wound. And for some, I think that's true. And at some level, I think that is an interesting concept. I've never tried to seek an apology, because I don't feel like they need to apologize for anything, because they didn't know. So they're not aware, because they're so deep in their own trauma. And it's not that it's okay, but that's why I say it's the acceptance of that, of going, you know, for me and my father, he doesn't have the ability to be able to understand how that happened and how he could have contributed to that, how he didn't show up as a father, how he didn't protect his son at one of the most vulnerable times of his life, how he just let him run free like a bloody feral, because that's what I was, just doing whatever the hell I wanted at 13 and 14. Like,
He wouldn't see that he had something to apologise for.
nothing at all.
And I guess,
Nothing.
I guess you
But-
don't feel like you need to try and educate him on that. Like,
No, but however, I have made sure that they understand that I understand. So my way of communicating that was because I changed my last name when I was in my 20s, because I did not resonate with my last name because of my family, and I needed a new identity for myself. It was a part of my healing to be able to break through what I felt was generational trauma, was to leave that away. And it was sort of like a line in the sand going, well, I'm leaving this behind and I'm moving forward with this, and I'm creating something brand new. And that was like a ritual for me. And luckily enough, I had really close people to me that were able to gift me my last name, which is my mum, which is Manor here in Australia, but it's my mum. And I got it from my Māori mates. And if you look up what Mana means, it's pretty fucking beautiful. It's really beautiful. But at that stage, I sent my father a letter, because that was the last time I spoke with him, is when I said, I'm changing my name. Because I had this weird period of time that he never spoke to me, had nothing to do with me when I ran away from home, when I went back to Tamworth. So I had no communication with him or my brother and sister that were over there, which killed me more than anything. He moved to Tamworth. I saw him when I was a teenager, never said boo. And then it was only when I went back there for a short period of time when we were going up to the Gold Coast that I was playing football at the local club, and I was really good. So all of a sudden he wanted to know me. It was that type of situation. It was just an acceptance. Yeah, he's my son type of thing. And I went along with it because I wanted to see my kid brother and sister that were much younger than me. So I was like, yeah, whatever needs to happen here, that's fine. Short time after that is when I went to the Gold Coast, and I did make that line in the sand, because I'd gone through a lot at that stage. Like I said, I went to a real deep depression, and I was unpacking all of that. And a part of that was, I just don't resonate with this anymore. And there's a whole story behind that. It's not actually our last name anyway, because we don't know who my great grandfather is, all of that sort of stuff. So it's all this lost generation stuff that had. So once again, the generational trauma. That's what I'm talking about. But that letter that I sent him, which I know he tried to read to his brother because his brother told me, that type of thing, was literally me going, I understand why you didn't show up. I understand that you had your own traumas. That's okay. I understand if you never want to contact me as well, that's fine. But know that I'll always love you. And I sent that to him. He's never spoken about that. He showed up out of the blue a few years ago when we were here in Newcastle again, when I was going through the whole, people dying left, right and centre in my life, and said, my grandchildren, could I say it? I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Sure. Yeah. That's the mentality that I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the mentality that I know you can't break through to that. But the healing for me was, well, I've done it, I've sent it, and no different to when I go and do a prayer or I release things and I do a fire ceremony. That's what that was like for me. Was, well, I've done it, and the intention is there, and know that for the little boy, I'll always love you, but take it however you do. I don't need you in my life.
You didn't need a response, it was complete.
It was complete. And the interesting part with my mum is because I moved her from Tamworth, I've got a really interesting and weird relationship with my mother as well. So she's always been in my life. Love her to bits. She's on to another man now as well. So she's just been like a record, right? She's just not been able to get her shit together from that point of view and doesn't learn from her mistakes. But she's beautiful, and I got my work ethic from her. I can't keep up with her at 60. You know, she's just the hardest working person I've literally ever met in my life. And I'm really grateful for that as well. And I'm grateful for all the lessons that she gave me about what not to do in relationships. That's how I worked on my relationship, because I'm like, as if I want to like end up in that cycle, because that's your mother's cycle, right? Because she was from a broken family, that type of thing. But the conversations that I've had with her over the last 3 years, from me being vulnerable and saying, this is how I feel, this is why I've done this work, telling her that I'd had sexual abuse and seeing her go, fuck, having her admit that when I left her place in Manila, that she said, don't think you're coming back then, right? Because I'd left, because that was her pain talking, that type of stuff. And then her talking about when she ran away with that, when she was pregnant with me, all of that, and really opening up about that has been super healing for me as well, because I also know that I'm slightly healing her by her understanding that and understanding what that actually contributed to. So it's really
Giving her a forum for that she's probably never
she's
had.
never had. And I'm that guy in the family. I'm the weird brother. Like I'm the super weird brother that like does all of this weird shamanic stuff, and he's like turned into a vegan. He's fucking super strange. And I'm just like, that's me, family. I am me, and I'm completely vulnerable. And I actually, it's not that I don't care what you think, but it doesn't affect me what you think, because our entire family has just been a family that any of the elders in our family, the only thing that they knew to be able to connect with each other is to tear them down, belittle them, that side of stuff. And I've spent my adult life just removing that from my life, just going, I love you. If you want to be in my life, that's perfect. But if you want to act like this, I can't hang around you. So that I've just picked these people for their own choice, not mine. I want you to be in my life, that's fine, but not in the way that you used to be, because I'm just not surrounding myself with that energy anymore. And my family is my family, and I'll protect them. And I don't want them subject to any of the stuff that I was subject to. There's no reason for it. So hopefully that long-winded, but I hope that.
What you said earlier, to sit with yourself and say you're okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I reckon that's the ultimate goal of anyone in life. If you can reach that stage of your life.
And whatever okay is for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. For me, once again, it was a feeling. It was like this blankness. I was like I hear all of you guys, and yeah, but I don't have this deep sadness that I used to get when somebody would say that I was sexually abused, or this person said that he was abused by his father, or emotionally abused, or this happened or that happened. You know, I just feel this like, you know, like, fuck, that's me, and I'm not doing anything about it, holding back the tears, that type of stuff. And now I can resonate with it, but there is no hurt there. There was no hurt, and that was the thing for me. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And
that takes work, right? That takes work, you know.
it takes a lot of stuff. Like I've only touched on the stuff that I've done, but it's consistent.
2 hours under that story minimum.
There's I could go a long time.
Skipped over each one.
Yeah.
Another hour there.
Yeah, but yeah, that's.
And you and Carrie, I'm just interested, like through that whole period, obviously you're having to heal, which means there's a lot of triggers that no doubt you two would have.
It's super interesting, right? Because Carrie, like I said, she's got her own story. So she grew up in a family that never ever spoke about the fact that her father wasn't her father, and the biological father was never on the scene until he passed away 2 years ago, and I broached it at the table.
Yep.
So like now Pete's died, and we know that that's the issue, because he was a proud man as well, and he never actually had any biological children himself, and none of us wanted to hurt him because we loved him. And he had his own issues because his father was an alcoholic and his mother left him and that type of thing, right? So he was a wounded child and acted like a child right up until then. But that was the father figure that Carrie had. And once again, for me, from 15 through to 41 was the most stable male in my life because he was always around. Like sometimes he like really pissed me off and vice versa, right? But he was the most stable person and he did his best, but he never asked for help. And see, for me, like that's the part that really gets me is like, how can I help this person to ask for help? They've got to be willing to be able to do that. But it wasn't until he passed away that we were like, okay, Linda, now can we get the secret out of the closet? Like, oh yeah, it's the English guy, whatever it is. So Carrie went through her entire life with secrets. That was her issue. So as a child, you don't feel really safe when there's secrets in your family all the time. And that was one of the biggest ones. And she's an intelligent girl. She's what I call her my little witch because she is a witch. That's why we're together. She's like deeply intuitive, hides a lot of that stuff. Like she's black and white. It's like, no, you're not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be hanging out still. But the relationship, I've shown her the door probably 15, 20 times.
That's literally what I was thinking would have happened through that whole thing,
Yeah.
you know, and I'd love
There was a period of time as well where I was in my deep depression and really like from a point of view of trying to work shit out, I got onto this weird online chat thing and I was like playing a story out in my head with some, who knows, probably a child predator or something like that over there, just like, but it was like a story in my head and her being a detective and knowing that there was something weird going on, found that came out and I'm like, yeah, I actually don't understand this whole thing. I've got to get help around this. Like, I don't know. It was never like, oh, I'm going to go out and cheat on you or anything like that and that was the weird part for me because of my background and because of the stuff that I've been subject to. It was really weird and confusing for me that I didn't just, because I had a really good opportunity with all of the Cal Rossi girls and all of those, because I used to ride bulls when I was a young guy and I'd go to the rodeos and I'd get smashed and Cal Rossi girls would be all over me. Not once did I cheat. I could have. And that really fucked me up as well because I was like, I don't understand this. Because I should.
She was on the other end too, do bad stuff like that. So you're doing the
that
opposite.
moral compass is the only thing that I can put it down to because of what I'd been through as a child. But she had to go through that. She had to go through the girls wanting to whatever and go, you're flirting all the time, Josh. And me going, no, I'm not. But, yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. And even just admitting that after I'd gone through and healed the feminine side of me and gone, oh, wow, through the process that I'd gone through there to understand that I've actually been treating the feminine really bad because what I would do is I would literally go into situations like that, really get them all hot and sweaty and then just drop them. Like that's really bad. That's a bad thing to do. But I took pleasure in that. I took pleasure in knowing that I could get somebody to that stage, which was an ego thing, which was a trauma thing, which is all about that building up. But accepting that, and it was only 5 years ago that I accepted, yeah, I actually have done that every time. Every time I've gone out for a bucks party or something like that, out of boredom. I've never enjoyed actually going out with the boys and getting smashed. It was actually, what can I do tonight? This is a bit more exciting for me.
Side hustle on the night. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. So she's had to deal with all of that. She's had to deal with 20 odd different Joshes. I'm a Gemini as well.
Yeah, right.
So like it makes it even more difficult. You don't know what you're going to get on any given day.
That's it.
Really don't. And I'm flighty. So, I'm like, okay, we got to leave Newcastle. All right, let's uproot the entire family and go to Terrigal. Well, this isn't really working out how we want to see. Hey, oh, well, let's go back to the Gold Coast. Oh, I don't know whether this is working out. Hey, we go to Newcastle.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good that she's been through that and
Still there.
yeah, still there. It's amazing.
Still there. But once again, that takes work too. That takes complete openness, complete and utter openness. The thing that you did the other day, we've had like 5 discussions around it. How would you feel if I had done that? Because I've got the darkness there that I'm really mindful that if I'm not careful, I could end up flipping over to the other guy that just wants to go and fuck everybody in town. But I don't want that because I've built this beautiful life with my wife that I absolutely love and we've got this connection. But having these conversations around even just that, right? And what that could uncover and maybe something that I need to heal there type of thing. But being able to openly be trusted and trust somebody with everything and have that conversation, that's a gift. And that, I don't know how some people can get there in 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's taken us 20 odd years to get there. Yeah.
Was she the first person you thought you were abused?
No, my psychologist was. I alluded to it when I was a teenager with her, but she was too young and to understand. I still remember standing by the tree at school, sort of alluding to it, her not really taking it in, and me just going, yeah, cool. I'll just keep that down there because I don't need this out. But I told her after I'd spoken to the psych about it. Yeah. And then within 3 months, I stood in front of a year 11 and 12 school boys up at Southport and told them
At what age were you then? Just
3 years ago.
3 years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
told them because it was like looking in the mirror. I could see all of these boys because of the school. You know, I've said it before, they're about all kids that have been pushed out of mainstream schooling, and this is their last ditch effort to be able to get there year 11 and 12. Amazing school up at Southport, and I was lucky enough to go and have this sort of chat with them. But saying those words, going from, you know, I've been physically and emotionally abused to I've been physically, emotionally and sexually abused, I had to hold back the tears because I was just like, this is a wave of emotion that I've just shared this with these kids because you can see the look on their face. So within the space of 6 months, I went from not talking about it to going, well, I've got it out now. I've dealt with that. And what I mean by dealing with that is I can now talk about this and I need to talk about this because how many people are out there not talking about it like I have been for the last 20 odd years? 20 odd years for the fear of what somebody might think about you. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. I don't know whether you know or not, whether there was any, providing that vulnerability for those kids, and what that, if that allowed them the space and courage to share some stuff with the guys at that school.
Well, you hope, right? It's that go first mentality. Is if you can openly in a forum say this, just those words, hopefully that's enough for somebody that might have been dealing with whatever to go, well, he's spoken to somebody, he's able to actually say it.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be able to get to there and be that free.
And also a damaged kid to see someone successfully navigate 20 years later and be a successful person. You know what I mean? In that mentality as a teenager, that would be enough to just go turn to hard drugs, turn whatever. But look at somebody in front of you who's now successful and go, that doesn't have to define me and I can move forward. So there's so much power in giving that experience.
Yeah, it's a gift that I'm really happy that I was able to share even just with that forum itself. It really is. And the other gift is being in a position, say financially and from a business point of view, that I look at it, you know, when you look at the esoteric stuff, the breath work, all of that, the retreats, all of that sort of stuff, where these guys are building businesses off it. It's business driven. And sometimes it can feel like I've got to get the tickets. So this breathwork thing that I'm doing on the weekend, so far I've got 2 to 3 tickets to it. I don't care because that's 2 to 3 people that I'm going to get in there and really help. I'm going to give them the gift of breath to be able to help. And if you want to come, guys, you can buy a ticket.
I'm literally doing another breathwork on Sunday with Tim, someone forget his name.
Oh yeah.
You know, Murray.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah. Tim Morrison.
That's him.
Yeah. So he's done the Spiritus breathwork.
Yeah.
Which is similar. Similar. There's so many different ones.
Yeah.
But that's seven.
Yeah.
And look, I'm loving seeing everything that's popping up in Newcastle.
It's
phenomenal.
It's a thing
the last 12 months since I've come back here. It's just exploding, which is beautiful. And that's one thing with breathwork that you've sort of got to understand as well, is every single one of them, each different one, has a different cause and effect.
Yeah.
That's what's so beautiful. You can do so many things with the breath that you know, from being able to run better, being able to breathe better from a functional point of view, being able to exercise better, through to, you know, like we do here, the Wim Hof stuff to prime your body, prime your mind to get into cold immersion, to the other stuff, which is similar to what you're going to do, which is holotropic, which is shamanic breath work, which is breakthrough breath work, rebirthing breath work. You know, these guys have rebranded it into other stuff of their own as well, which is great. Tim does an amazing job, and it's all about setting. It's all about the right choice of music, and it's all about actually knowing and being a trauma informed breathwork instructor as well, that you've got the ability to be able to help people through. Because if you've got somebody in the room that's going through a rebirth and you've got no idea what that's about,
That would be bad.
you've just re-traumatized the
First
person.
couple happen, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, they need that.
Yeah, it's
Reassurance.
it's super important from that point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, but breath is amazing.
That's
It really is amazing. And thank you to the likes of Stanislav Grof and his wife that went, well, we can't administer LSD anymore. We need to find something else that's going to get us to an altered state to drop below the subconscious. And they went and did it with breath, which was off the back of the yogic traditions as well. And that's where all of this is birthed from, is from that, from LSD being illegal.
Yep.
Because they couldn't get to the same thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I heard the other day that they're just doing, I think it was an Australian university doing the first I don't know, I don't think it was LSD, I think it was psilocybin.
Yeah.
One of the first trials back in, like, I watched that
Legal trials.
first legal trials
Yeah.
because they, I can't remember what doco it was. It's a doco just about like about the different psychedelics and essentially how they just was it, I can't remember what US president it was, but just sort of banned everything in the world, just sort of got what they had all this amazing research and all this amazing results, and then it just got wiped out in the 70s.
Yes.
And it's essentially just up until like the last 5 years, it's just started to, people start to push it a bit more, and now it's sort of like,
Well, they've just passed the first stage to psilocybin and LSD, I think it is, which can be administered through therapy.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not yay, it's good to go. It's got to be treated with some awareness that there's a lot more things to come, and you just hope, you know, that it doesn't become a big pharma thing where it becomes exclusive and the people that really need it can't get to it the way that they need to, or the red tape's just as bad as what it is, because that's when people go underground anyway.
Yeah.
The good news is there's some pretty amazing facilitators out there from a shamanic point of view and from a therapeutic point of view that you can get access to if you ask the question.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask the questions.
Yeah, cool.
Really wants to do it. I mean, I do too. But
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely. I mean, that's the breath work. I was talking Mike before about. I want to bring this into the trades, like all of this. Every bit of it, and because they're the hardest.
Yeah.
Not the hardest, but they're, because I know it. I feel they're one of the hardest crews to crack open, because literally my lead chippy and my other chippy, they're just like, my lead chippy he's just an old soul that, and I still remember he just had his baby about a year and a half ago, and he's like, it's like he wasn't getting any sleep, and you know, she's crying and whatever, and he goes, remember I used to just get hit to stop crying. I turned out all right. And he's not. He's one of the most toxic humans you've ever met. But under that, I can see where he's a softie, and you know, like I'm treating it as a bit of a challenge now. Like, and I'm obviously still working on myself forever. Journey never stops, like I said. But to bring this into the trade, and it's like, you know, I've even said, because I want to come here to the ice bath press work next Wednesday. And like, I'm talking to the boys about it, and they're just like, I've never done an ice bath, you know, like it's up in this level, and you know, I might be saying it's just, you need to be, it's just part of life. Like it's not up to this level. It's like this is a part of life, and this is your journey now is to heal and be kind to your daughter. And you know, like Joe still says derogatory things about women, and I'm like, oh, I pull him up. Like, you have a daughter.
Yeah.
What about a guy says that about Savannah?
Yeah, and that's big of you, man. That's really big of you. Because it is really difficult in a trade scenario. I know that because obviously of my trade background as well. And it's one of the things that killed me the most. Is just that trade mentality. And I still see it in business and that type of thing as well. Especially, you know, derogatory stuff about women and that type of thing. And
it's the whole thing
as a piece of meat still. And it was super surprising for me when I came back to Newcastle again and got subject to that in the business world really quickly. Because, you know, not that the Gold Coast is this holy grail or anything, but it's not PC to do that. So if you want to be in the circles,
Okay.
don't get caught talking like that.
Yeah, right.
Which is super interesting. But down here it's sort of still that collar, yeah.
Bogan, yeah.
This chick, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like let's appreciate her.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's great.
Yeah, let's appreciate her. That's fine.
Yeah.
We are men. We do notice things.
Yeah.
But let's not like treat her like she's some sort of there's me.
Yeah, and it's like not even necessarily that. It's like just the whole you hammer like a girl or any of that stuff. And each time I'm just like,
Yeah.
like you have a daughter. I just literally say those words to him.
Yeah.
He just looks at me and just keeps working. It's like
Yeah.
eventually, hopefully that sinks in and
Maybe
Probably
not.
not, but
You know,
it'll
it's like
sink in.
for my father as well. Like I say, the acceptance of that is I know he's got the same feeling and the same heart as me because I've seen it.
yeah,
I've seen him in his worst and when he's broken down and I had this small glimmer of when I first went over there, you know, he and I remember it forever. And he was on the piss as usual. So, you know, he just loves, that's what he does. Like crackling peach is his favorite, was the cheapest. He's not an alcoholic, but he won't give up alcohol to fix his entire body that's falling apart right now.
Yep.
But anyway, we were down at the showground. I forget even what he said, right? But he had a shot at me. And I think what might have happened is one of the people that were there who saw this probably like, you know, frowned upon it a little bit because there was some good quality people there, even in the circles that he was hanging around. And I still remember him getting in the U, pissed. We're going to drive home, but getting in there and actually apologising for it.
yeah, right.
And I'll never forget it. It was the first and only time he ever did it. But at that, like, I felt safe then. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, he gets it. But then that was it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I'll never forget that moment. So it's in those moments that, you know, like your mate, you're like, I really know you. Like intuitively, I know you.
Yeah.
And I know you're just a hurt child.
Yeah.
And I know all of this stuff is just what you've like blocked it out with. But unfortunately, I just don't think you're going to do it on this round.
Yeah.
Yeah. If so, I'm here.
Yeah.
And if there's an opportunity, I'll help you.
Yeah.
But once again, that acceptance of being able to go, well, you know, yeah, I can be me and I can go first. And you can do that.
Yeah.
And if they do want to come along with that, that's
mate.
great. If it opens something up, that's great. If not, hopefully on the next
Two
cycle.
apprentices don't have a choice. They're coming.
Yeah.
Those other two boys, they are coming. They
They
are
don't get through their trade unless they do it.
Yeah, I'm like,
Mandatory.
Yeah,
yeah.
mandatory.
But like I even had it.
Plenty of hugging that day.
Yeah, I've brought it in. Like I hug Marcus a lot because he's very open. He'll be awesome. But Maxi's just only just started, but I think he'll be fine too. But the other two boys, you can just see, and because I am pretty vulnerable, and I do like I talk about my life. Not that I like it. And this is a side note. I was just thinking when I heard your story, I don't have a story.
No, that's
like
bullshit.
no. But
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
I do. But like when
Yeah.
I say that, I mean
Yeah.
I don't have this story that
Yeah.
makes me go fuck. You know, I don't have that necessarily. I have my own story, absolutely.
Yeah.
I respect it, but I don't have that background to draw upon. You know, so I draw upon all of this and you know all the research and stuff that I can get into my brain about it. You know, my mum and dad split up when I was 3 or whatever, so that's obviously created a lot of things down the track that, like you sort of said, you deal with it as an adult and you accept it. You're like, oh, but they're just doing what they can, but you don't actually go through the process of like, well, that's not right, or that's not how it should have been. Still accepting it, but not going through that. And it's like, yeah, I did a 4-day retreat with Amber Hawken, and it was an
Did you enjoy that?
It was amazing.
Did Ness put you onto that?
Literally life changing. No, she'd already
Yeah,
done
right.
it and
Yeah.
was going to go to the women's one back in the day.
Yeah.
She couldn't because she got pregnant,
Yeah.
and so I ended up going. But literally life changing.
Yeah, awesome. I'd
It was
love to
amazing.
know more about that.
Yeah, it was epic. And yeah, I don't know what was I getting to just. I lose track so easily.
Story.
What-
Yeah, just
Your
the story and the men that you have. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's like, yeah, but I was saying something about the retreat.
Vulnerability or something.
Yeah, it was getting, just the things that come up through the breath works, like some of the breath works were just amazing. I had some awesome breakthroughs, which I did. And my goal was, because she asked, like, what are you thinking? What do you want to get out of this? I'm like, I don't know. I want to delve into the dark depths, pull out anything that's there, because I don't think there's anything necessarily there, but I know there probably is, because I react and I yell and do all the things, and they're triggers of shit
Yeah.
that's there, no doubt. And like, And again, I'm a massive, I was saying before, I'm a massive judger on myself, but never realised that until this retreat. Because I've always just gone, I love myself. I'm actually a really nice guy. And I say that, but in here somewhere, I've never really noticed until I did that retreat where I like every second thing was a judgment. Like I was like doing the breath work, you're not doing it but good enough. Like, you know, the ego's just yelling at you, and it's like going through that whole process. And it's like, it took that for me to realise that, fuck, like I do judge myself heaps on heaps of shit. Like, you know, Amber pulled me up on things just the way I was saying it. And even in conversation, I can hear myself doing it now, like, you know.
I reckon a huge thing that I can resonate with what you're just saying. I feel like I'm a really nice person, but I'm an absolute cunt to myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm an absolute beast on myself. Like,
Yeah, look,
like
innately
my
we're
level-
ultimate self-sabotage.
yeah.
We really are.
Yeah.
It's that controlling the situation outwardly, but also bashing the shit out of yourself because of such high expectation, which is a cultural thing again, or it's something that is a learnt behaviour from whatever your childhood might have been. I mean, those first 7 years, right? That's what they talk about. Whatever was going on in those first 7 years, some of the hardest stuff that you've got to work on.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
I was thinking about it only yesterday, actually, of like the standards, almost like the standards you hold for other people, how quickly you forgive them, and whether you have the same rules and stuff around yourself. Like, it's like, so for me, it's like, if I miss a session, whereas if someone else misses a session, I'm like, hey, why did you miss a session? Like, that's sort of like, how high do you hold yourself accountable? How hard are you on yourself? How hard are you on other people? Is that all fair and equitable? I guess. Yeah, do you let yourself off the hook, or do you hold yourself? Do you judge yourself and go ham on yourself harder than you do anyone else? I'm still trying to process it.
I think you can do both.
Well, yeah,
Easily.
yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, for me, I think situational dependent. But I think what you said before as well about just being in the construction industry and stuff, and I had this discussion with a couple of guys over the last few months around, like, I think it was around this table as well. Young guys are looking for leaders to stand up and to be guided, and for whatever reason, there's multiple different reasons why good men don't feel like they can be courageous enough to stand up and say, hey, that's not how we speak, or whatever, and it's even harder in the construction and mining industries and that sort of thing. So for me, that's a big part of this place, is like, how do we give men the courage? How do we give good men the courage to stand up and the vocabulary to articulate themselves in that instance, so that it doesn't escalate? That you can sort of not necessarily put someone in their place, but go, hey, like, this is not how we speak, and this is not how we behave, and this is not these are the words that we say, in a really respectful manner. Just go, hey, mate, like, if you want to talk like that, like, that's just not really cool with me. And it doesn't have to be really you don't have to be really feminine about it. If people are worried about doing that, it's just like, it's almost more masculine. But yeah, to give good men the courage to stand up and be leaders, and that's what those young guys are really looking for, is those role models and leaders. How can we all do that a little bit better? You know, it takes time. It takes practice you can't just stand up in front of 50 blokes that you don't know and just go, hey, like, this is don't do that, or like, I don't appreciate that, and for them to go, oh no worries, mate. Yeah, sort of like, yeah, okay.
I think there's got to be some level of respect there for the person that's coming from as well. I have this distinct memory. I brought my brother up to the Gold Coast when I jumped back on the tools. We were running our own business, hanging ducks and doing air conditioning and whatever with my best mate. So he's got his own story. He's a Māori boy, and he's like, you know, super colourful, really colourful. And he was a bad guy in his 20s as well, like, real bad guy. But I still remember it. Jeremy came up. There's 8 years between myself and Jeremy, so I brought him out of Tamworth because he was just going nowhere in Tamworth, couldn't get his trade, all of that. So I'm like, just get up here, mate. I'm doing the trade at the moment anyway. We'll help you through that. We'll get that done. So he came to work with me, and he still had a chip on his shoulder. And at that stage, I wasn't okay. So I was still doing my own shit. And so you got the pressure of business, all of that sort of stuff. And then I've got this kid, literally a 17, 18-year-old kid that I've just moved up from Tamworth, who's like, you know, looking for someone to help him out. And we did, and, you know, I'd gone out of my way and I got him a rental, put him in that, paying him good coin. And we just kept on butting heads when we were up there. And I still remember it. And I'd never ever said this to him ever before, but I called him a cunt. Right? I said, you stop being a cunt. And I said it in front of James, my best mate. And like, I sent him for a walk because that's what I used to do. I just said, just go for a walk. Like, just go for a walk, mate. And then we'll talk about it in a second. Because he just wanted to butt heads with me. It's just what he wanted. And I remember we were going down the lift shaft because it was a new development, this apartment block we were doing. And we're going down there, and he looks at me and he goes, bro, he goes, I would never say something like that to my family. And I just went, fuck. Yeah, you're right, bro. You just really pissed me off, but there's no excuse for that. And that, to this day, that just like, that hit me to the core. And I was just like, I am really grateful that he pulled me up on that.
Yeah.
Like, really grateful that he did that.
We've got a lot to learn from Polynesian and South Pacific. Well, like I've been in the cops for 22 years, and I've worked with this bloke. It's the hardest bloke I've ever met. Like, never shed a tear. Would just literally just punch portals in people's heads. He was just the toughest bloke. Anyway, his twin brother, who wasn't in the cops, passed away, and we all went to the funerals out of Beresford. And he's Fijian, and Fijians have a week of mourning with an open casket in the house. We got there about day 3 or 4, and we were a bit like, it stinks in here, like, and all these massive islanders were bawling and crying and hugging, and they saw us. And my mate who I'd work with, I've never seen him shed a tear, and he just grabbed me and embraced me. I thought my head was going to pop. He said, "Thanks for coming, bro," and just bawling. And I was just looking around going, just these men, they had this energy in the room, these men just cuddling and crying with this massive human in a casket, wasting away. It was just, we got back in the car. There's about 4 of us that went out to the funeral, got back in the car, and none of us said anything. Like, it was just dead silent from Beresford back into town here. And took a couple of days, but we all sort of went our own way, and took a couple of days for us to come together. What the fuck was that? Like, that was so powerful. And we've got a lot to learn from the way they interact, the way they look after.
It's all ancient cultures. Every other ancient culture except for this white culture that we've got that's been bred out of it because of Christianity. That's where it comes down to. That everywhere that they've colonized, they've removed whatever that culture is. And every other culture, and that's why I'm an advocate for rites of passage. It's because our biggest issue for young men and young women is there is no official rites of passage. And you look at any other traditional culture, Aboriginal culture in any other area, they've all got a rites of passage. They've all got ceremonies around things like that. There is no taboo, like stick them in a casket and let's get them in the ground and we can't think about it. Yeah, like we just do that to get closure. They move through that, the life and the death and the rebirth stuff as well. They really embrace that. And that's culturally, that's what we're missing in Anglo-Saxon culture, is that it really is. But if you go back to the pagan era, when the same thing happened, you know, in Ireland, Scotland, and all of that, until they came through and got rid of that as well. So the whole Christianity side of thing is what really bled that out of it. Same as Aboriginals when they came here. You know, you can't talk your native language. You must learn English. You must follow our God, and away you go. But yeah, it's the cultural stuff that we've got a lot to learn. Which, if you're open to it, it's pretty amazing.
You've got to be.
It's pretty amazing.
So, like when you talk about that young bloke on the tools, he's just not ready. You know what I mean? He might come to a point when he's 5 years old, or when his daughter gets to, who knows? But I think you need to be open. Like, some people are never ready.
That's the danger, isn't it? There's an awful lot of help available, particularly now on social media, but not all of it is qualified. And I don't mean qualified in terms of having a piece of paper, but qualified as actually being helpful. And those avenues are generally only being accessed by people who know they need it or want it.
Exactly.
It's the people who don't know they need it and don't want it that are the ones suffering the longest and the hardest. And so the moments like, dude, you got a daughter, and maybe no more than that ever are the moments. It's the same as coaching and trying to develop training people, you've got to catch people and address it in the moment, both positive and negative. Great job there. Well done. Not, hey, yesterday when you were doing that, that was really good. Now here. Good, bad, lay it out. Get it wrong often, but lay it out. And when you're coaching people and developing people, they've got to be prepared to take that. So you're in a fortunate position of being the boss, so they have to take it.
Yeah, yes and no. And I've been bad with
They don't have
boundaries.
to take it in.
Yeah, I've been bad with
You're in a
boundaries.
position
with
where
the
you can
boys.
give it.
And I think that's a big thing learning from Nez too, is to set those boundaries, because I got taught by some pretty cranky builders, or my main builder was, and I went the opposite way. I was just like, oh, do what you want, boys. It's not how they learn. It's not, it's not how they progress, and it's taken me till this year to work that out. And
When they're in fear or when they're scared.
yeah, that's right. So it's obviously a balance. You need that bit of a balance. I'm sort of learning, but yeah, just an interesting one. My apprentice Marcus is 4th year now, and twice I've rang him separately and I just said, mate, you're fucking amazing. One was just because he's like training hard, like, and looking after himself and doing really well. And the other boys, typical tradies, eating shit, whatever else. And it's like, me included, not regularly, but like I fall off the wagon. So, and it's just good to see that. And I just rang him, and at the end of the day, I'm like, man, it's so good to see that you're doing that. Like, yeah, you're 5 minutes late, but you trained in the morning, you did all this shit. You can be late 5 minutes every day. I don't care. It's amazing. And then the one thing that happened yesterday, I think it was yesterday, such a simple thing that made me a better person, just hearing it from this 28-year-old 4th year apprentice, was like, we've got to sheet a house. And it's like, not really a chippy's job. And it's like, but we've pretty much done them all because we can't get trades anymore. So we've got to do after work. It's not the most glamorous job. I've done it heaps in my time. Don't care. Like, I enjoy it, but I'm not always in the tools. So the boys are sort of doing that. So, and I said, and I did the whole, when you're in the trade, you say it before they say it to make them feel comfortable. I'm like, oh, it's a bit of a shit job, boys, but we've got to do that. Marcus just says, it's not that shit. It's all right. It's not that muchy. Straight I went, fuck, what am I doing? I've got this apprentice saying the shit I need to be saying in front of everyone. And I just went, you're fucking right. It's not that bad. And then again, like, I had a big chat with the 2 boys today while none of your tradies weren't there. I was like, man, I fucking love that. Like, that is, you are killing it. It's like, and Maxie, I want you to learn this and embrace this, because it's just so good to see. And I just need to be better. And that was me being vulnerable, going, oh, that was silly for me. Like, I just didn't approach that well, and you just nailed that. Like, because it isn't that bad. The job was not that bad. So, and just such a simple thing. It's not deep, but such a simple thing. It's just like, it means so much, I think.
I think it's a habit though. I think gratitude is a when it's not something that comes to you naturally, there's something you have to really work on. And I don't feel as though I have a strong gratitude for myself or other people all the time, but I try and make more of a conscious effort around our team. And I just had this little moment of gratitude the other week where I was just like, you know what? And one of our clients says it all the time, but I was like, I get to rock up to work in a pair of shorts and a singlet, talk to a few people, facilitate a few things. We hang out with our friends all day and go and get lunch, do some admin. It's not always glamorous. Sometimes it's long, it's weird hours, but I'm literally got to get sun every day, hang out with friends, literally wearing shorts and a t-shirt to work. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty bloody good. And like, just sort of thinking like how lucky we all are and that's what, for me, I really want for the gym and for everyone that I work with, is like to give them the opportunity to live their dreams and to live their life and be able to buy a house and have a kid and financially support them like that, but doing stuff that they really love is but you're having a bit of just the gratitude for that, those little moments of like, you know what, had to get up at 4:30 this morning, but I got to put on my shorts and a t-shirt. I didn't have to. I've been sitting in the middle of the Pilbara with 45-degree temperatures with the long longs and then a sperm suit over the top, logging rock core. Even that wasn't that bad, but you know, like there's some things that you do in your life which aren't as much fun as others. So pretty lucky.
The other one I love, and a manager that I had the privilege to work for on 5 different occasions, directly for, pointed this out at a GM's conference, and trying to remember exactly what happened. It's probably not important exactly what happened, but the situation was one of the GMs who was disgruntled about something we were talking. They had introduced a change. Part of the conference was to introduce change, and they'd introduced a change, and there was an opportunity for discussion and feedback. And one of the guys was saying stuff like, and not in a really, really negative way, because, well, to be frank, you couldn't do that at a GM's conference or you'd be fucking gone. So it wasn't in an obtusely fucking negative way, but it was sort of like, oh God, so now we have to do this, and we've also got all of this that we have to do, and we're all trying to do all this really, really well, and now we have to do this, and we all want to do that really, really well, but it is mounting up, isn't it? You know, the amount of stuff that we have to do, and Blair, the guy who was my boss on a number of occasions, said, oh, well, I can't remember the guy's name. He was one of the guys from the United Arab Emirates. He said, oh, well, yeah, you know, I guess at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is that we don't have to do anything. Yeah. You don't have to do anything. Yeah. It's all a choice. Yeah. And he just went. And I have to keep reminding myself about that. But more importantly, when you know, if you're coming into hard conversations or performance management or coaching people, just reminding them of that. Yeah. None of this is fucking mandatory. Yeah. You can go home now, instantly, and decide you're not going to do this. Yeah. No problem.
We get to do it.
You
don't have to do it. We get to do it.
I remember Marco Renee standing up. I think I shared this the other day at the school, because a couple of the kids had got, like, Southport's a shit location up on the Gold Coast. It's where the worst of the worst hang out, you know. But what had happened is, I think the boys had finished on a Friday in their kit. They'd gone out, and some other young kids had sort of had a bit of a chip at them. Most of these kids are all Islander boys and Maltese, and you know, there's only a few little white fellas in there as well, but they're all from these families that are very proud families as well. So I think they probably tout these young fellas up. But they came in, and it was Monday mornings before I was having this talk, and so I got to sit there and watch Marco stand up in front of them and just say, boys, it's not what we do, and you don't have to be here. You choose to be here. And if you want to have that sort of behavior, then you're welcome to go and do that. But we don't do that here. Mm-hmm. It's a choice for you to be here. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be a part of this. Yeah. And just seeing, like, the energy and how that resonated through all of those boys, like 100 odd boys, was just like, that is like getting an absolute slap in the face without actually getting slapped in the face, if I've ever seen it. Because it is a choice of whether or not you want to turn up here or not. And I like, it's the best thing you can say to somebody, right? It is, right? What if they got us a comeback? Because the fact of the matter is, and I've said it so many times to my team members and stuff too, you don't have to do any of this. If you don't want to go and do that inspection, don't do it. But
because you're
not going to make any money.
Yeah,
you're just giving them ownership and taking away.
That's what it is. Yeah,
excuse.
That's right. Yeah, we're not forcing you to be here.
Yeah,
no matter what it is, nobody's forced to do anything. They aren't. Everybody makes a choice, and it's the ones that, you know, they're complaining about their 9 to 5 and all of that sort of stuff. And it's like, but you're choosing to get up every day and go and do that.
Did you guys see that movie? It was touted in the HR circles probably 10 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, called Fish.
Yeah, I remember.
About the Seattle fish markets.
Yeah.
And it's about these guys who live in Seattle for a start, so fucking miserable place to live. And
they get to live there though. They don't have to.
And their job is shoveling fucking ice and dealing with stinky fish all day, every day. And they do the same thing every fucking day, and they're just down to bloody earth, sort of soul of the earth type guys, but a mixture, different cultures, different backgrounds and experiences, but they've become renowned for having this incredible atmosphere around their bit of the fish market. They sing and they have a jibe, and they talk to people, and they make genuine contact with customers, and they just, people go there just to watch them work, you know. And this guy at one point, he says, yeah, oh, okay, so good day, my name's Bear. You know, I set the place up in the morning, I come in, shovel ice for about 3 hours. He said, fucking, we got these guys, you know, and they work in the offices around here. I call them the yogurt dudes, because they come at like, it must be morning tea or something, I don't know, but they come with their yogurt and watch me shoveling ice. Like I'm doing something special. He says, I always have a bit of a laugh, but you know, whatever floats their boat. But at the end of the day, this other guy said, and this was the first time I ever heard about choice, but I've heard it, Blair talked about it, I've used it so many times, it's not funny. The guy said, you know, don't be cranky at that customer because they asked the same question that the last customer asked, and the customer before them asked the same question. They don't know that. You know, I don't know that. You've got no right to be upset with them. You know, do you want to be cranky at people? Well, don't come into work. I don't have any choice. Of course you have a choice. Do you want to eat? Do you want to pay your rent? You know, do you want to look after your children? Well, you got to come to work. Do you want to be a miserable ass all day at work? Or do you want to make the most of it? It's a choice. And I've watched it a lot of times ages ago. But you can I haven't watched it for at least 15 years, and I'm still reciting it, parts of it word for word.
Yeah.
So it was impactful.
Very impactful.
Is it
Yeah.
fish?
Love it.
Fish.
Yeah.
Is it a movie?
No, it's like a short motivational movie.
Yeah. Right.
It's called Fish, about I've forgotten the name of the fish market, something fish market in Seattle. And it's awesome. The characters are really good. They're really good. The yogurt dudes.
I love that.
Because man, they come and just watch us work. It's very good.
You do a good impression, though.
Yeah, you know.
I do these heaps. I literally just text Loz, fish, short movie about Seattle Seas, just in no context.
Yeah.
She gets it all the time. I send her photos, drawings.
That's what I do.
I'll do a certain picture. She'll get that and go.
What the fuck?
Google.
She'll probably look it up and have it ready when I get home.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah,
That's what
love
you want. Yeah, no, it just made me think, yeah, what we said before, and you get to is like, I said to the team the other week, we're like, all right, we'll write down things that we don't have, I guess you don't want to do. Maybe shouldn't be part of your job. You know, cleaning's always sort of like the first thing. I was like, you know what though? We get to clean the gym, and we get to do it. We get to be proud of the space, and we get to be proud of like how it looks and how it feels, and that's why we clean it. So we get to do that because we it's just like, yeah, it's a job that you can outsource, but it's also an opportunity to own it as well.
Rephrasing it as well, like you
Yeah.
get to do it. Like well,
So-
I can pick up a mop because I've got hands and I can move my hands and I can do this.
Yeah.
Like that's the rephrasing, a get to do list, or another one I heard was a to-do list. Like, you know, so you just cross it off the list and you go, ta-da, I've done it, you know, to-do list. But then that concept of a list, like wash the car, hang on, got a car. Fuck, how good's that?
Yeah.
Mow the lawn. Fuck, got a lawn, got a house. Like that concept of gratitude with your get to do list.
Mate, jump in the fucking ice.
Yeah. Get to
Get
do
to
that.
do it.
How blessed are you to do that?
You know,
I have that.
I have the time to do it.
Yeah.
I have an environment where people around me are interested in doing it with me. And I have a place where I can come and do it regularly.
Yeah.
And it helps me feel proud of myself for breaking through that boundary every week. Amazing. I don't want to jump in the ice. Cool. I don't want to either, but I do it.
A couple of people sent me through the week. I'd put it on my story.
Mm.
Fuck, what do you want to do that for? It's cold.
Mm.
That's the fucking point, you idiot.
People go, oh, you know, I don't think I could ever get to like that. I said, fucking, I don't like it.
It's love
I do.
it out.
Yeah,
Getting out, it's beautiful.
It's no fun.
Although I reckon you and Dobbo, bloody hell, on Wednesday, that was cold. I stuck my hand in it, that was cold. When
That
you
was
guys,
that's the best one I've done down here.
yeah.
And it was, you know, I actually said
Probably
to
the
Carrie,
30 bags of ice we buddy put in.
yeah, I said to Carrie, I actually really enjoyed that one because it's interesting. It seems like for me,
Mm.
over 5 degrees, it's sort of like a winter swim
Mm.
because I do it all winter.
Yeah.
But under that 5 degrees, which it was,
Mm.
it was between 2 and 5 degrees because the ice bath, if you do the Wim Hof one, it's meant to be 2 degrees, right? It's just above 0 degrees is what they look to do. So whenever they're setting the fridges up or freezers or whatever it is, it's 2 degrees is the aim that they're going for. But it's the first time in a long time, and I made the comment. I said it's like I just had an internal week because there's this feeling that happens when you go through that state where your body. Because when I first got in, I said this fucking hurts. My testicles hurt. Like everything's hurting right now.
I thought he was trying to make me laugh.
No, they did. They fucking hurt. Like if they could have gone up here as lumps, they would have been. But it hurt. But then there's this feeling which I remember the first time, and I'm going to be really, really funny. It's sort of like the first time that you ejaculate, you never forget it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it was like the first time that I had this feeling when I was in the ice bath, because you get in, you've just done the Wim Hof breath work like I did. I got in, it's like 2 degrees, and you're like, first of all, your body's like, fuck, and then you're like, no, right, just go into the breath. And then all of a sudden, your body mine just goes like this. It just goes, oh,
Yeah.
Mm.
and it's like this, and you're like, ah. And now I can like go right into that state where we're trying to drop into.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I hadn't had that here until the other day, and I said to Carrie, I said that was really good. That's the only way I can explain it, because that's what the feeling is like. It's like if you peed in the pool and it warm up, it's like it's like just this flow of heat that just goes, and it flows over you.
Yeah.
Same thing sort of happens to me, like the opposite way when I'm doing psychedelics. It comes back up the other way. It's like this wave, and then you're like, ah!
Yeah.
You know how Dobbo had the paddle and he was going, you got to let it marinate, It's like, yeah, whatever, just get in.
Mm.
After we went for a coffee and came back, he put the thermometer in it. It was down to 2.8.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. So his concept of let it marinate, he's right. Because when you guys were, it was like 4.6, I think, or 4.2 or something.
Mm.
It had gone like significantly down after sitting
right.
in there for half an hour. And you know, when the ice dissipates, you go, oh, that's cold. I
Yeah.
was looking at it going, that's not the thermometer.
That's when it gets that's when it hurts. I reckon that's when it starts to hurt. When it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's cold.
Yeah.
The water's just so cold.
It's so cold.
It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. You're like, oh, there's not much ice here. It should be all right. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just like the frozen.
It's
Like,
just all frozen.
it's like a frozen river sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
We
thing.
did one during winter and the edge of the water on the
It's
edge of the
freezing
thing was
up.
frozen.
Yeah.
Before you put ice in it.
No, after when we came out of the breathwork,
Yeah.
the edge of the water was
As you
frozen.
inhale, the water would rise up, and then you exhale and stay frozen. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
I'm actually really excited. This next few weeks.
Sleeting.
Oh, like they're the best ones. Yeah. They're the best.
Yeah, no, I've lived in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said to a few guys, like we're only putting 2 bags in,
Yeah.
like when it was bordering on winter last year. 2 bags. We put like probably 9 in each one on the other day.
Yeah, it's coming out of that tap. So
Yeah, it's so
at the
hot.
moment.
But that's what I mean. Like
So
when the water gets to the point
Yeah.
where the water's already cold,
Yeah.
and you just dump a couple of bags in, I reckon that's when it starts to like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I remember fighting to get my breath back.
Yeah.
I actually experienced, and I don't know whether anyone else has, I got angry on Wednesday, internally angry, and I don't know where, I tried to mull it over in my head, and I just thought I'd drop it on you now. But in that first couple of seconds, I jumped in that one on Wednesday, I had a feeling of rage.
That's what it brings it out, man. That's
Yeah.
what's so good about the breath and ice.
Yeah.
So you primed in there, and then you got in there, and whatever was floating around came up.
And
Yep.
I don't know what, and it was only for maybe 3 or 4 seconds.
Mm.
This internal rage, and yeah, I've never experienced it ever.
Yeah, right.
And
The trick to that though is not suppressing it.
Well,
I
Don't
just
try and-
went
don't
into the
try and-
breath, like,
yeah,
just because I
don't
was
try and suppress
tired, I was
Yeah.
just got into the breath, and it subsided.
Acknowledge
pretty
it.
quickly.
Acknowledge it, know that it's there, let it do whatever it needs to do.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but that's like, mate, this is what Wim Hof went from wanting to bloody die to actually absolutely fucking being bananas about life because of that, because of breath and ice. I mean, he lost his wife and he had no purpose anymore. Yeah, but he just as he did, just get in the ice water. Just get in the ice water, and away he went. He went, oh, I feel great, and I didn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's amazing. But that's what's so good about it. We have the mechanics here and the chemistry here that if we can tap into it, which you can through breath, you can through ice, you can through medicinal plant medicine, whatever it is that you want to do, depending on whatever healing it is that you need to do. You can do it by spoken word therapy, that type of thing, because believe it or not, chemistry's going wild while you're having that therapy. And that's why you've got the emotions flowing over you. You go from feeling depressed to feeling happy to feeling scared, whatever it is, just through speaking the word. Each and every one of those modalities does something. I mean, sitting in a tent for me, which was amazing last year, and this was sort of like the last thing I did before I went on the 4-day rites of passage retreat training, was doing the sweat lodge, the American Indian sweat lodge, and sitting literally, here's the boulders that are like lava in front of you, going, there's no escape here, and having somebody facilitate it, which is, the young guy that is, his father is whatever tribe it is, I forget it is, and he's one of the first ones to have this gifted to him down through the lineage that you've got to accept, and running that whole thing and really feeling the energy that comes behind that as well from a cultural point of view. Watching a guy that's like, it's so funny, you watch certain people come in, and he was fridgy, funnily enough, this guy. I remember seeing him get out of his fridgy truck and he's on the juice. He's a big bally looking guy, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty fucking fit, this dude. Like, he's a big guy. He's obviously getting into it. And he sat up there like to the right of us. And it was just interesting because he's like, yeah, I'll sit up in the heat and whatever. And he had to get out of it. Just had to get out of there. He was the first one to go. He's like, no, I've got to get out of here. I'm going to pass out. And I was just like, yeah, wow, okay. And then I've got, another girl next to me that's this little slight thing that is this thing that they do, like it's like shwee, shwee, and that's how you continue to move the energy. If it's coming up, shwee, shwee, you bring it back down. And she's next to me going shwee, shwee, and just feeling all the shit come up in me, just going, yeah, oh, you're doing really well, but I'm really getting agitated with that.
That's really annoying.
Really, getting there, and then having him, what is it that you're holding there, and like really questioning what it is, and like, don't force it up, and then just all of a sudden just going rah! And like just the biggest growl I've ever done in my life, and just going, I don't know what that was, but it feels really good, and I feel really grounded, and I feel like, and the craziest part was when I went and jumped in there, because as soon as I connect with nature, it's another level again, and it was just like a psychedelic trip getting in the creek to go up. I was just like, I'm just floating here and I'm gone, just completely gone. But this is why I say, for me, like all the different modalities that I've done over the years, every single one of them has been gifted to me at a certain time to work through a certain thing. And that was all about coming back to earth and being grounding and really getting there, because I'd spent, the last 5 to 10 years out there somewhere, out there getting all the answers to help this kid down here to do the healing. And that was sort of like coming back and going, I choose life. I choose this 3D reality or whatever it is, and I enjoy it. I remember why I'm here now. Whereas before it's sort of like, I just got to get through it. I just got to get through it. But just each of those different things
That's like
crazy.
it's like what you got to say about the ice, right? It's like, if you try and force yourself into the ice and try and just get through it, it's a hard road. Like, it's a hard 2 minutes or 3 minutes or
So
whatever.
it's
So
the
it's like
resistance.
the resistance, yeah.
Yeah.
So the acceptance is
Ayahuasca taught me that one real quick. Really quick.
oh yeah, will.
Really, really quick. The big learning thing, apart from that other lessons that I got out of that the first time I did it, was that control thing. So I can control any situation. My ego says I can control this situation. Okay, I can keep myself safe. And then having that wave come over me and me going, all right, I've got to control this. I've got to control this. And then literally having her just tear me to smithereens until I went, okay, I'm not trying to control it. It's all right. I get it now. I'm listening because it hurts so much. I'm listening. I will manage my response to this. I don't want to control anything anymore. And then all of a sudden, where we went. And then the lessons came tenfold. But that initial, when it came on, and I was like, you know, the anxiety comes up a little bit because you've got that flow coming through, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll be able to get, it's all right. Just keep calm. I can control this situation. And I literally had to physically remove control from my language for me to be able to do that, or I just would have been pounded for 12 hours.
It's also the other word that people use is handle. I can't handle that. I found that hard to handle. But generally people do mean control when they use that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I found that hard to accept because I wasn't in control.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I find your behaviour hard to handle. Why? Because it challenges me and I don't know. I can't control it.
That's right.
No, I don't like it.
Yeah. I don't like it.
So stop it.
Well, yeah, that's right.
It's just the parent, eh? Or the little boy.
George, thank you for sharing, mate. I'll tell you the one thing that really got me out of it, and I was reflecting personally quite a bit, not listening, but also, was just the intention in which this seeking nature of yours has led you to live intentionally. And my life's been very different to that. And I loved hearing about that.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing.
Awesome, mate. Thanks, team.
We're good.
Thanks for a great evening. Highlight of my day.
Was that cathartic? Did that feel therapeutic?
Which part?
Just everything, just
Sharing?
Yeah.
It's natural for me to.
So I was going to say, and I don't know whether I'm ready to do it yet, but
Yeah.
I feel like I think I would seek some therapeuticness, if that's a word, out of delivering something about me. Sometime here, I don't know when I'll be ready, but just hearing from, say, start to finish, and there's so many more avenues you could speed it off on, but in a nutshell, I feel to deliver something like that about myself. I don't know whether I'm ready, but I think that would be therapeutic, just because we've all got, it's no one lives a happy, charmed life. Everyone's got bumps along the way. But
Otherwise, life's.
Thanks for listening to the Junto Men's podcast. Our mission is to share high quality information for regular blokes who either want to be better or who might be going through some tough stuff. We really hope you got some value out of listening today. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So if you did get some value out of today, we'd love it if you left us a comment. We read them all, you shared it with a mate, or even gave us a 5-star review. We love getting those. If any of what we have spoken about today was interesting to you and you'd like to know more about what we're about and what we do, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or on our website from the links in the notes. We'll hopefully talk to you soon. Cheers.